Alrighty, my name is Billie Jean Wickstrom. This is my sustainability speech for SP100 and the summer of 2012. This is my visual that I'm using here for Endangered Species and You. This is my audience, my husband Brent, my neighbor slash friend Kelly, who hates cameras, and my brother-in-law Josh. So let's get started here. Alrighty, so first of all I'd like to just discuss about my the sustainability, that is the capacity to endure. For humans, sustainability is the long-term maintenance of responsibility, which has environmental, economic, and social dimensions, and encompasses the responsible management of resource use. I got interested in sustainability from just living here in the Northwest, or being around nature and everything. It just makes me want to know more about it, more about endangered species, what it means, the history of. I also have a handout here for my audience. This is the federally listed stuff from Lane County, Oregon. It is updated recently in July of 2012. It has the proposed species, listed species, and also species that have been delisted. So one of my goals is to educate the public on what sustainability means, what an endangered species is, and how we are supposed to coexist with that. So we're going to start with the history and go on from there. In 1973, there was an Endangered Species Act that was pushed through. Before then, there was a couple small acts in 1967, but 1973 was the breaking point for this. One thing that I found was that the public realized that their thoughts and their opinions did matter right after the Vietnam War, which was a big reason for the end of the war was the U.S. public support and lack thereof. And I believe that is where the endangered species became an issue and why people decided to do something about it. The government needed to be involved for many reasons, one of which is my first chart here. This is the acres in millions of what percentage each bureau in the government owns of the land. The U.S. government in total owns a little under 30% of the total land mass of the United States, which is why they needed to step in and do something about it. This is a chart here, and this is the Bureau of Land Management, and they own about 104.4 hectares that they manage. The Forest Service, USDA Forest Service, manages about 78.1 million. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service manages about 38.8 million. National Park Service 33.8, and the Department of Defense is about 12.1. Now, since these guys own so much land, they're the ones that needed to be involved. Now, what these guys do is, of all that land that they manage, they just make sure that all the rules are being followed, all the different species that need to be on the list are on the list, and they help push those through, and they also, they can have something to do with making new laws and making other aspects of it come through for reality. These are also reviewed regularly. They say every 10 years. I mean, obviously, things happen more often than that. And they get reviewed regularly. There have been many amendments to that Act of 1973, Endangered Species Act, which are very necessary given the changing times. Now, one thing that the public can help with is really just getting educated. That is one of the biggest things. If the public is educated, they can be sure to, follow instructions or follow rules, and they can also help educate others. Another way people can do is they can get involved by volunteer work. I have some information about that if anybody would like to get involved with some of the agencies. Now the next thing that is super important is the coexisting with nature around us and the endangered species, well, whether they be endangered or not. If people can learn to coexist, by following rules like we talked about earlier, just getting educated, then we can be able to stay on this planet quite a bit longer. Another chart I have here is a chart about what people actually think about who should be in charge of these things. This large part of the pie here is 80%. This is a source from Wall Street Journal in March of 2005. And 8 out of 10 people believe that there should be protection for endangered species and extinctions. So that's a good thing. I mean, if people want to do this, then it's more likely going to happen and have a positive outcome. As the history of the endangered species works its way to present, we have the responsibility to understand and respect these processes, which are very important. And after you get to know a little bit more about it, it's easier to respect and to follow the rules. So that's part of my goal here today. Now, for getting on the endangered species list and just being recognized on the list, there is a very, very long process to do. So it's not somebody Joe Blow off the street can go do. There has to be a reason. They have to show numbers. There has to be a lot of statistics. There has to be all these bureaus' approval of this. So it's quite an extensive list of things that people have to do to help the environment, help sustain life as it is currently. This picture on here I thought was kind of interesting. I found this on firstgiving.com. This was a story about how the mother turtle had died. This is the common pond turtle, which is on the endangered species list, and how all of its eggs and turtles would have died without human intervention. So it's kind of just a good example of, if we can step up in some things and help protect other things, they need us too. So let's take all these new rules and facts and put them into perspective as far as coexisting. It's not always easy for humans to be able to follow all these rules and to do all the things that they need to do to make it easy. For example, here in Oregon there is a huge logging community, well at least there used to be, and it's a huge venture that a lot of people used to make a lot of money from and has been cut real short because of some of these lists. In the 70s and 80s, there were some pretty strong acts that, like for instance in Southern Oregon, a lot of mills were shut down and a lot of people were out of work just to comply with these things. So there's definitely pros and cons. Some of the pros include that if we keep the land around us beautiful, and if we keep all of the endangered species alive and well, it's going to be promising for everybody, and we're going to be able to be on this planet quite a bit longer with the beauty and coexistence as possible. So just like any other thing, knowledge is power. The more we know about it, the easier it is to comply with and to upkeep. So we went over the history about the 1973 Act, and we went over who manages everything. We went over the coexistion of how to be better together, how to live together as one to make it easier, and we went over some of the facts of how to get on this list. Some other things that they're doing to get on the list is in this chart here. This is just one example, it's kind of current in the last couple of years it came out, of the states that are banned on exotic animals. So they're protecting us, we're protecting them. It kind of works one in the same. Humans and all other species, endangered or not, must live to coexist, and we need to do that responsibly to sustain life on the planet. The more responsible decisions we make, the easier our future will be to live and sustain in harmony with nature. There are many places to gain information, which is I found by doing this project. There are tons of information, especially here in the Eugene-Springfield area with all the activism there is here in the university and Lane Community College. I have some more information for that if anybody is interested, and thank you for your time.